Good evening, everyone. My name is Shoshana Schiff. I'm the president-elect of the Essex County Bar Association. And thank you, Rabbi. And a partner with McManaman, Scotland, and Bauman and Roseland. The Essex County Bar Association is honored to once again partner with the Jewish Law Symposium so that we can bring you this great program and, of course, provide CLE credit. Thank you to our panelists, Chris, Heidi, and Warren. We look forward to part 2 of this interesting discussion. And of course, a special thanks to Rabbi Lubin, well, for just being Rabbi Lubin, and for assembling this great panel of speakers and coordinating this event. As always, we need to recognize Wendy Deere, the Executive Director of the Essex County Bar Association, for all of her assistance. Before we continue to our keynote speaker, I'd like to tell you about an upcoming program that the Essex County Bar Association is hosting. It's the 3rd Annual Corporate Counsel Symposium, which will take place virtually on October 14th. There will be 2 distinguished panels, one focusing on cybersecurity and one focusing on how outside counsel can work collaboratively with in-house counsel to effectively represent their mutual clients. The panels are made up of both in-house counsel and outside counsel, and the keynote address will be given by Acting Attorney General Andrew Brock. It should be very informative. If you'd like to register, please go to the Essex County Bar Association website. I now have the privilege of introducing tonight's keynote speaker, Judge Rachel Freier of the New York City Criminal Court. Judge Freier, known as Ruchie by her friends and family, attended Jewish day schools where her teachers, many of whom were Holocaust survivors, impressed upon her that each person is created in the image of God with incredible potential, which inspired her to reach great heights in public service. After graduating Touro College with honors, she attended Brooklyn Law School part-time so she would have time to study law and while raising her 6 children. After graduating law school, she primarily practiced real estate law as one of the first female Hasidic lawyers in Brooklyn. Judge Freier founded a charity devoted to helping poor Jewish families in memory of her friend who passed away at a young age. When a group of Hasidic female emergency medical technicians in Borough Park asked Judge Freier to assist them in their desire to serve other women during medical emergencies, her offer to help them mushroomed into directing a global grassroots, all-women's volunteer agency. In order to be a more effective leader, she became a licensed EMT and attended CLI at North Shore LIJ for her paramedic training. In 2016, she campaigned and was elected as a civil court judge for the Kings County 5th Judicial District in New York State, becoming the first Hasidic woman judge to be elected as a civil court judge in New York State and the first Hasidic woman to hold public office in United States history. She was recently honored as one of Brooklyn Law School's trailblazers and has received many other awards in recognition of her significant accomplishments. The New York Times did a profile of her in 2017, dubbing Judge Freier the Hasidic superwoman of night court. Judge Freier is a proud, devoted mother and grandmother of a Hasidic family and truly an inspiration to us all. Please join me in welcoming Judge Ruchie Freier. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me. First of all, I'd like to say the blessing of Shehecheyanu, because this is my first live in-person speaking event since COVID began, was that March of 2020. Seems like such a long time ago. I'm so honored to be here, and I want to thank you, Rabbi Lubin, for organizing this program. I'm just so proud of this audience for being here, being so brave. And I think your panelists are amazing. I mean, I have nothing to say. In the few minutes that I've been sitting here, they've given you such amazing advice. And I think that the whole concept of juggling and balancing, I think that it's 24/7. It's constant. And as long as you're breathing and living, you're going to be having these type of challenges. Now, I just want to make sure I don't overstay my welcome. Rabbi Lubin initially invited me to come speak at 6:45 for 18 minutes max. Well, now that it's 7:15, what is my time slot, Rabbi Lubin? because I'm not nervous about what to say. I'm nervous about what not to say because there's so much that I want to share with the audience here because of my legal background. And when we talk about emergencies, it's interesting because once I became an EMS provider and I run around delivering babies at 3 o'clock in the morning, you kind of shift focus and understand really what are emergencies. When someone is not breathing, someone's having chest pain at 2 a.m., suddenly that, that brief that had to get out or that motion that you're working on, somehow that, your perspective kind of, but then again, so, and when I hear that I'm a mother and a grandmother, I have to I jolt myself and I say, wow, it's been so many years. And I used to have to lie about my children's age, but now I need to lie about my grandchildren's age because my oldest granddaughter is having her bas mitzvah in a couple of weeks. And it's truly totally insane. I mean, it's a blessing from God. And thank God I made those choices when I was younger. Because for me, what was always so important was I wanted to succeed in the career of law, but I just didn't want to compromise my Hasidic values. But somehow the message that I got from my teachers when I was in school was that you have to choose one or the other. Are you going to be a proud Hasidic girl and raise a family and get married young and have a bunch of kids? Or are you going to try to go out in the outside world and go into some secular field? And it bothered me, like, why were these two mutually exclusive? Why couldn't I have both? Now, I have amazing parents. My mother is the child of Holocaust survivors. She's the oldest of Holocaust, and I'm the oldest grandchild of Holocaust survivors. My grandparents were, may they of blessed memory rest in peace, were so proud of me as the oldest grandchild. So, because I proved that not only was Hitler wrong and were there survivors and children, but now they're grandchildren. So my generation, the fact that we were born, we were great. And my teachers, they called us all tired kind. Anybody here understand Yiddish? Raise your hand. I'll translate everything. Oh, a couple of hands here. Precious child. We were precious because we were born. And we proved that the Jewish nation is eternal, will survive and live forever. So growing up with that, with that environment, I said, why can't I have it both ways? And that was always my challenge, balancing my convictions and my desire to succeed. And I'm going to share with you a little bit about what it means to be a Hasidic woman. I mean, obviously what you see is obvious, right? I'm covered up, right? But I still try to dress classy, right? So my sleeves are long and my skirts are long and I'm always wearing tights and my mother does my wig, so they always better look good because and so the things that you can see, you can see and you can understand. But the things that you don't see are sometimes big struggles. So I'll share with you the struggles and the challenges that I had. And the takeaway from that would be is how you can kind of learn from what I do in my world and understand that everyone has challenges. Everyone is trying to balance whatever it is. So I'll share a couple of episodes with you to kind of give you an understanding. And before I do that, I'll just tell you another thing that I've learned is whether it's your family, your children, your partners, your spouses, or whoever it is that you have to answer to, make them part of your challenge. So when I decided to go to law school, my youngest of 6, my twins, were toddlers. And I had to get through law school and studying the bar, and I had these kids. So I made them study with me. They had index cards with crayons and mommy is studying torts and you make a picture of this and you make a picture of that and that's how I studied. So when I was studying for the bar, mommy, how was it? They were part of it. They were a part of what's happening. And I fast forward and I become an EMT and a paramedic. Well, let me tell you what that means. My husband wakes up middle of the night and says, you weren't in your bed at 3 o'clock in the morning. Where were you? I said, we had a transport. We took someone to the hospital. So as long as they're a part of it, it'll be a little bit easier to make those balancing decisions. But let me share with you a little bit about what it's like when I have to make these hard decisions and what I've learned from it. So one of my early jobs, so just quickly, by the way, whenever I speak, I never go in chronological order, so you really have to pay attention. Okay. So when I graduated high school, I was 17 years old. And at that time, there were no college opportunities for Hasidic girls or boys. So Hasidim, we're nonconformists. We don't change. But when opportunities change, we're there. Once colleges start to open up that cater to our community, no classes on the Shabbos, no homework over the holidays, then we started to go. So I was a late bloomer. So I'd been a legal secretary for many years, took a course in high school how to be a legal secretary because law was part of my DNA. And then when I turned 30, college opportunities began to open up and I went to college. I was working, going to college, having my babies. And then by the time I graduated college, I was still a legal secretary and I was going to law school. Now, when I was a legal secretary, at one point I had this desire, I gotta work in the big firms. I think the film The Firm had come out that year and I watched and I said, I gotta work in a place like that. So I started to send out my resumes to these, recruiters in Manhattan. And I went for an interview and I got the job. Wonderful firm on Lexington Avenue. I think there was like from the top 50 firms in the country. I try very hard not to say names. And if I talk about people, I'll make up a different name. So I get this job in this firm and it's the summertime. And my issue of leaving early on Friday didn't come into play then because it was summertime. But I heard about Dress Down Friday coming up. Dress Down Friday. What is Dress Down Friday? So they told me that in the corporate firms in the city, during the summer on Fridays, they want the attorneys to feel like they're not working so hard. So you come in casual, you dress down, no ties, no suits. I mean, there were some rules. You couldn't wear shorts and flip-flops, but by and large, it was a dressed down atmosphere. I come from Borough Park. And in Borough Park, we like to dress up, not down. So every Friday, I had this dilemma. What should I wear? What should I wear? Now, back then, I had this denim dress. And I knew that for me, for a Hasidic woman from Borough Park, my sleeves were borderline. Now, what borderline means is it covered all the places it had to cover, but if I raised my hand a little bit too high, it would roll down. Now, I'll share with you a secret. About 15 years ago, they came out with this invention, a fashion innovation called shells. I wear them every day. Today, I'm wearing a navy blue one. They come in lycra, cotton, kid size, adult size, every color you want. They're amazing. They have the stores called the Shell Station in Borough Park. Now, so today I had no problem. I could shop anywhere and I'm good to go. But back then I didn't have a Shell. And I wore that dress and I figured, hey, this is Midtown Manhattan. Who cares about Ruchie Freier sleeves, right? So I'm at my desk and I am typing. And one of the attorneys that I was assigned to work for, I was an associate, a Harvard Law School graduate, comes to my desk and he says to me, Rachel, I see your forearms, and he covers his eyes. I felt like I was punched in my gut. Now, when I used to go to school in Beis Yaakov, we had teachers that were our modesty monitors. We didn't always like them. They would come and make sure that we're dressed appropriately. None of them ever impacted me like this young associate did, because his message to me was, I know you're Hasidic, and I know you dress modestly, and I'm sure you don't know that your sleeves are too short. Well, I came home that day and I threw out that dress. And the takeaway message from me was that people want to look up to people who don't compromise their standards, whether it's your family, whether it's your spouses, your partners, whatever it is that's important to you, especially your connection to God. If you have these values and you don't compromise them, and you're true, you're honest, you're not wishy-washy, they will not let you let go. So you may think, oh, it's going to be hard working with people because I have all of these standards, but they actually want to look up to somebody else. So I have so many stories to share, but I want to make sure that I just share with you the ones that are like the most key, so that my limited time, I share with you what I think is most profound. And then I'd love to open the floor for questions, because I think that sometimes I could talk and talk, but the audience wants to hear something else. And they told me in law school, the only stupid question is the one you don't ask. So everybody should feel they can ask a question. At one point, I was already practicing law, and everybody told me it's never going to happen. My journey is a journey of naysayers every single step of the way. You'll never get through college. You'll never get into law school. You'll never pass the bar. You'll never have any clients. It was like every step of the way. And I always said, if God wants it to happen, it's going to happen. I do pray a lot. I try to pray 3 times a day, and I think that God listens to our prayers. But I do believe that if you have faith and you persevere, you will succeed. So I had been a legal secretary and a paralegal for real estate lawyers, and I really liked real estate. But I figured the real estate industry is full of movers and shakers and hawkers. And if I want to open up, my law office, these young people aren't going to come to me. So let me do a little bit of elder law and trust and estates internship, learn a little bit about that area of law, because maybe the more mature population would have no problem coming to some Hasidic woman from Borough Park. So I got myself an internship. I opened up the papers. Back then, everything was just the papers. And I found that there was a law office right across Brooklyn Law School on Court Street that practiced elder law. I walked in there, knocked on the door. I said, I want an internship here. Sure, I got it. So I came in once a week, and the elder law practitioner shared a suite with many other lawyers. And one of them was a litigator. And we love all kinds of lawyers, right? Litigators usually are like assertive, right? Aggressive, right? They have to be. We all have to be, but in different ways. So my seat that I was assigned to every week was right opposite, let's call him Joe, right opposite Joe's office. Joe was a big guy, and Joe had a big mouth, and he would say whatever was on his mind. Now, where I come from in Borough Park, we called that cursing. He said a lot of curses. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, my teachers in high school taught us, girls, you're going to graduate school and you're going to go out into the whole wide world. And you have to understand you're going to be confronted with challenges. And there are 3 levels that you will find yourself in. When you see something and you feel it's not right, your first level is going to be, you're going to see red flags and hear bells and sirens and say, this is not right for me. And if you do nothing about it, you're going to go to the next level where you get used to it. It doesn't bother you so much anymore. And if you still do nothing about this, girls, you're going to get to the next level where you're going to participate and enjoy the activity. Now I'm thinking to myself, I'm sitting here, I'm just the intern here. Joe's the big litigator here, and he's cursing every day. What am I going to do? So I'm just going to nip it in the bud, knock on his door and said, Joe, can I speak to you for a minute? I have a little problem. Sure, come inside. But I come in just once a week, and I come from the Hasidic community, and it's not about you. It's really about my problem. You see, I prefer if I don't hear so much cursing. And he gets up, and a big, loud, booming voice, he says, everybody here, when she comes here, no cursing. And then every time I would come in for the internship, that here she comes, everyone, watch your language. So one day I said, I got to outsmart these guys. So I came in with a little pushka, a charity box, and I put it on my desk. And I said, okay, guys, I'm going to create a disincentive to cursing. Anytime somebody curses, you put a quarter in my charity box, and we're going to send it out to the poor people in Israel. Well, Michael comes out and takes a $10 bill. Rachel, here's an advance. So there's always a way of saying something that may be uncomfortable in a way that kind of gets your message across. And you earn the respect of your colleagues, your coworkers, your supervisors, your employees, your employers, whatever it is. My experience has taught me to be open, to be friendly, to encourage people to ask questions, especially from the Hasidic community. You see me, sometimes I appear to be different. You meet me, the first thing you want to do is you might want to shake my hand. Step number 1, I don't shake hands with men. All right. So how did I overcome that burden? Some people told me, well, every time you meet somebody, make sure you have a cup of water in your hand or a cup of coffee and a bunch of books. But that's ridiculous, because what happens if one time someone catches me and my arms are empty? I have to just own up to it, explain it, tell people, and then they'll understand me. I had a closing once when I was practicing real estate, because, by the way, I did have a real estate practice. They did come to me. And you know who were my first clients? The Satmar Hasidim from Curious Joel. You want to make God laugh? Tell him your plans. Because anyone who said I wouldn't have any clients, it was the Satmar Hasidim who came to me first. And they spread my name and built my practice for me. So I was at a real estate closing. And my husband, who's a mortgage broker, by the way, let me stop for 1 second and talk about my husband, because people make a big deal about me being the trailblazer and everything like that, but he is the true trailblazer, because he is the first Hasidic guy who not only supported me and stood by my side, he financed my campaign. I maxed out all of his credit cards. And he did not stop. He went to all the synagogues and rabbis and got them to endorse me when I ran for judge. So he's a mortgage broker. Back to my story. And when often we would share clients, all with disclosures, completely above board, everything was signed. And I was at the closing in Long Island, and the bank attorney, wonderful Irish Catholic attorney, who knew me, knew my husband, all the people in the room were Hasidim. And he comes around and he starts shaking everybody's hand. And he comes to me and I say, John, you know I can't do that. So he gives me this big hug and says, oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot. Now that big hug was far worse than a social handshake. Had there been a hole, I would just gone right into that hole. But these are stories that I could laugh about now. But when I went through them, you know, sometimes you go through a difficult period of time, it'll pass. In Hebrew, we say, Gam ze ya'avor, this too shall pass. And sometimes you're dealing with something which seems like it's the most difficult thing in the world, most difficult time. And this too shall pass. And I have these moments every single day. Now, especially going through the high holidays. So my 3 sons married. No, I have 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls, just like the Brady Bunch, but 1 husband. So the boys all live in Brooklyn in Borough Park, and the girls, who are all blonde with blue eyes, live in Jerusalem. All right, they know what it means that every time we have the high holidays and Passover, they move back home for a month. So you can imagine what it's like. The grandchildren running around, the baby screaming and crying, toys all over the floor. I come up like, I don't remember this, you know, I didn't have this for a while. And then the constant cooking, you never stop. There's the whitefish, the salmon, and baking the challah. I love baking challah, by the way. So the machine doesn't stop. So these are challenges, and everything that comes as a challenge usually is rewarding, whether it's helping your clients, helping them out during their difficult times. I love studying law. I love the practice of law. I love law from every single angle and every single facet, from the bench as a judge, from practicing lawyer. If I hadn't been a lawyer, I couldn't have started Ezras Nashim, which is the all-women volunteer EMT corps that I direct. And that really just was an outgrowth of my public service, because rewind a little bit. When I started law school, all the naysayers predicted that I wouldn't stay as devoutly religious if I go through law school in a very secular environment. Because remember, when I went to school, it was just an all-girls school. So it was, and even college, I went to a Jewish college. So this was the first time that I was going to be sitting in class, in a mixed class. And I kept saying, why can't I do it? Why all the naysayers? So I made my deal with God. And I said, dear God, please help me get through law school without compromising my standards. And when your children come to me for help, they'll need legal advice, I will help them. And God wasted no time in testing me. Shortly after I graduated, I got involved with helping Hasidic youth at risk, primarily adolescent boys. Around 2008, I founded a group called Bederach. I helped the yeshiva get started in Williamsburg, and then some other men got involved, and I didn't have to do it anymore. And then a couple of years later, a group of EMTs contacted me. they wanted to serve. And in the Hasidic community, there's an amazing volunteer EMS group called Hatzalah, and they're all men. And because of our gender separations, they wouldn't allow women to join. So the group of women who wanted to serve were stuck. If they wanted to serve, and the only agency that's out there, which is amazing, saving thousands of lives every year, are only men, and this is what the rabbis support, what should they do? They approached me. And I said, if I went to law school for this agency alone, it's worth it. So we had to start from the bottom. I had to become an EMT because if I'm going to become the director, it will be malpractice if I wouldn't become an EMT, right? So that's where all the legal training kicked in. I had to deal with the city government, the state government, the federal government, the IRS, 501c3. I was spending so much of my time in my legal background to help this agency get started. And then I said, I got to become a paramedic. I can't let these men think they know something more than I do. So, and then we had to fight to get our right to have an ambulance. And that was another whole legal battle. And then I said, how am I going to drive an ambulance? We sat down and I said to the group, maybe we should hire some big guys to drive the bus. And they said, Ruchie, absolutely not. We didn't fight so hard all these years to have some men drive us. So I said, but I don't think I'll reach the pedal to drive an ambulance. Let me tell you something, I'm 5'0". If I could drive an ambulance, anybody can do anything you want to do. You have to just believe that God runs the world and you'll be successful. I like to just finish off with this story, Hasidic story of Rabbi Zisha of Anapol. Rabbi Zisha of Anapol was one of the early Hasidic rabbis who lived in the early 18th century in Anapol, Russia. And he's on his deathbed and he's crying. He's crying. And his students, the disciples, say, Rebbe, why are you crying? You're such a holy Jew. You're going to go straight up to paradise, Gan Eden. What are you crying for? And he says, I'm not crying because up in heaven, in the heavenly court, not crying because they're going to ask me, Zisha, why weren't you like Moses? I'm not crying because they're going to ask me, Zisha, why weren't you like King David? I'm crying because they're going to ask me, Zisha, why weren't you like Zisha could have been? We don't know our potential. We don't know what we're capable of, what challenge we're capable of going through. We can balance things. We can do things. Yes, have a rabbi you consult with, have professionals you consult with, but always believe that God created you with your unique abilities and skills, what we call in Hebrew that Tselem Elokim. God created us all in the image of God. Whatever connects you to God, whatever it is that you feel connected to, hang on to that, stick to those values, because my experience taught me that those values didn't pull me down. It was actually a propelling point to get me to succeed. And I had no idea when I would win the election that it would become national news. I was just Judge Freier living my dream in Borough Park. It was really all my kids did it for me. Ma, we're going to call the newspapers. And that's what they did. So all these challenges, they pay off. And yes, they're difficult. Yes, they're hard. Yes, I have them every single day. Every day, just like all of you, we all deal with our challenges. Because as long as we're living, we're going to have them. This podium has no challenges, right? It's a piece of wood, has no challenges. But what we believe that whatever challenge we have is given to us uniquely from God, because you were created with the toolbox that you need to deal with that challenge. So open your toolbox and take out those tools that God gave you, your unique talents and skills, and go ahead and be successful. Never, never, ever compromise your values, because you don't have to. Thank you so much.